Hello everyone, welcome to HUAWEI Firewall Multimedia Configuration courses. In this course, you will learn how to use predefined URL categories to control websites accessible to users. We all know that the internet involves a massive number of URLs, so how can we accurately filter these URLs? HUAWEI USG6000 adopts a categorization mechanism to categorize URLs for category-specific URL filtering. Currently, HUAWEI USG6000 contains more than 95 million URLs in 137 subcategories of the 45 categories, and the numbers are still increasing. The table lists all categories, which almost cover URLs of all types. Each category consists of several subcategories. Take category download as an example. Let's see the subcategories it contains. Category download consists of subcategories ebooks, software download, picture download, music film download, and general download. Predefined categories contain a large number of URLs. Storing all these URLs on the local device will surely consume a large amount of space and make subsequent maintenance difficult. In addition, searching for a URL category from such a massive amount of information consumes device performance and is low in efficiency. Therefore, the USG6000 combines local query and remote query to address this issue. The figure shows the process of querying a predefined URL category. The USG6000 is delivered with a predefined URL category database, also called pre-installed URL database, that contains some common URLs. After initial startup, the USG6000 automatically loads the predefined URL category database file to the cache. When an enterprise user accesses a website on the internet, the USG6000 is triggered to perform URL filtering. After extracting the URL from the packet, the USG6000 starts to search for a match for the URL in the predefined URL category database. If a match is found, the USG6000 takes the action defined for the category. If no match is found, the USG6000 initiates a remote query request towards HUAWEI's security center. The URL category database on the platform contains all URLs and is continuously updating. Therefore, accurate category information can be queried. After the predefined URL category database in the cache receives the remote query result, it adds the category information of this URL to the database. Then the USG6000 processes the access request based on the action for this category. To ensure that the content in the predefined URL category database can survive USG6000 power failure or restart, the USG6000 regularly saves the predefined URL category database to the database file. Upon every subsequent startup, the USG6000 automatically loads the URL category database file. Through this learning process, the local predefined URL category database, that originally has only a little content, is constantly updated to cover an increasing number of URLs. This reduces the need for remote URL query and accelerates URL filtering. Note that the USG6000 does not support the URL remote query function by default. You must purchase the corresponding license and load the URL remote query component. Now let's move on to the process of remote query. The USG6000 first sends an authentication request to HUAWEI's security center and requests the address of the URL dispatch server. After obtaining the address of the dispatch server, the USG6000 continues to request the address of the query server towards the dispatch server. Considering that the URL category database shall be constantly updated, and that the query speed shall be fast, the architecture of dispatch server plus query server is employed. There can be one query server or multiple query servers in a cluster. The USG6000 detects the query server that responds the fastest and sends a query request to it. In addition, for the USG6000 to communicate with HUAWEI's security center, URL dispatch server, and URL query server, security policies must permit corresponding packets. The table lists the configuration requirements of security policies. You can adjust certain parameters as required. As you can see from the table, you shall pay attention to the destination port and protocol. After the URL matches a category, the NGFW processes the user access request based on the action for this category. Currently, the NGFW supports 3 actions. The allow action indicates that the NGFW allows the access to the requested URL. For this action, you can also configure remark DSCP, namely, the packet priority remarking function for downstream network devices, to handle URL traffic of different categories based on the modified DSCP priorities. The alert action indicates that the NGFW allows the access to the requested URL and generates a URL log for subsequent audit on user behavior. The block action indicates that the NGFW blocks the access to the requested URL and generates a URL log. In addition, the NGFW pushes a web page that can be customized on the web UI of the NGFW to describe why the URL cannot be accessed. In real world, a URL may be found in multiple categories. If the actions for these categories are different, which action will apply? Well, 2 modes, namely, the strict mode and loose mode, are available on the NGFW to address this issue. In strict mode, the NGFW implements the strictest action on the URL. For example, a URL matches 2 categories, and the action is alert for one category and block for another category. Then the NGFW takes the block action on the URL. In loose mode, however, the NGFW implements the loosest action on the URL. That is, the NGFW takes the alert action. Now let's see an example on how to use predefined URL categories to control websites accessible to users. As shown in the figure, an enterprise has deployed an NGFW as the gateway to connect the internet and internet. Employees can access any website, causing the following issue. On one hand, certain employees usually access work-unrelated websites, such as shopping, stock speculation, and video websites, during work hours, which adversely affects working efficiency and brings intangible asset losses to the enterprise. On the other hand, video traffic occupies excessive bandwidth, which compromises the internet access experience and working efficiency of other employees. The enterprise hopes to allow employees to access only work-related websites. For this scenario, the administrator shall set different actions for various URL categories for access control. For example, the enterprise allows employees to access portal websites like Yahoo, which belong to the portals category. The administrator then can set the action for this category to allow. The enterprise does not allow employees to access streaming media websites like YouTube, which fall into the streaming media category. The administrator then can set the action for this category to block. Now, let's see the specific configuration method. Choose Object, URL Category, and check whether the NGFW has loaded a predefined URL category database. If the NGFW has loaded a URL category database, you can see the URL category list. If the NGFW has not loaded any URL category database, the web UI is like this. Log into HUAWEI's Security Center, sechuawei.com, and choose Signature Update, Signature Update. Select a corresponding product model and version. Then you can download the URL category database of the latest version in the ERLINA tab. Click Load Now and browse, select the URL category database file just downloaded, and click Load. After these operations are complete, you can see the URL category list. Choose Object, Security Profiles, URL Filtering. Click Add to create a URL filtering profile. Set the name to URL Profile 01. Set the default action to block. Then set actions for predefined categories. The first column is Allow, the second column is Alert, and the third column is Block. Locate predefined category portals and set the action to Allow. Then set the action for category Streaming Media to block. Here is a little tip. If the actions for most predefined categories are the same, for example, the actions are Allow for only 2 categories, and are Block for all other categories, you can set the actions in batches to simply the process. Select Block in the first row of the category list to set the actions for all user-defined and predefined categories to block. Then change the actions for the two specified categories to allow. Click OK. You can see the newly created URL filtering profile URL profile 01 in the list. However, you have not finished the configuration yet. Instead, you have to apply the profile in the security policy for the URL filtering function to take effect. Choose Policy, Security Policy, Security Policy. Click Add Security Policy to create a security policy. Set the name to Policy 1 and to the filtering conditions. For example, the source security zone is trust, the destination security zone is untrust, the source address is 192.168.0.0, and the mask is 24-bit. The action must be permit. If you set the action to deny, URL filtering is not implemented. Select the created URL filtering profile in the drop-down list of URL filtering and click OK. Till now, you have completed the configuration and application of the URL filtering function. At last, click Commit on the upper right corner to activate the configuration. The configuration does not take effect immediately after you create or modify the profile. You must click Commit on the upper right of the interface to apply the configuration. To save time, you can commit the configuration after all operations on the profile are complete. After all preceding configurations are complete, enterprise employees can access portal websites like Yahoo, but not streaming media websites like YouTube. You can choose Monitor, Log, URL Log, to view URL logs generated when the NGFW blocks access to streaming media websites. The filtering type is predefined. If a large number of URL logs exist, you can use Advanced Search to filter them. Click Advanced Search on the upper right corner, set the filtering type to Predefined, and click Search. We've completed the course. Thank you for staying with us.